Hey John here. So we got one of these side mount vacuum deals, the Ultra Vac, whatever it's called, for the ExMarks. Not sure what this is off of, what model. These things are kind of, I don't know if they're all the same. They're probably different sizes. And this one has no label on it. I think I've seen Ultra Vac on before. Anyways, this came off, I believe, a 60-inch cut. I'm not even sure. It's here today for bearings. And that's a noisy one, but I'm not doing that today. I'm doing this one in here. A couple in here. Look at this pulley. That whole thing's just wobbling back and forth, so this thing is probably making a lot of noise, and that guy wasn't helping. But let's take everything apart and see what we got. So the first thing is, I think we're going to take these, there's a bolt missing here, but 1, 2, and then if we flip it over, you can probably see here there's bolts that hold this whole plastic piece on. We've got to get that off first. So yeah, this is put on wrong. This is not the way it's supposed to be. There's a bar in here. It's just, when I take it apart I'll show you. That actually is supposed to be on top of this piece, so it's like a clamp. So whoever was monkeying around with this put it together wrong. So like I said, you got to go around and find all the bolts, take them off. They probably won't all come off easily because they're all rusted, and I only had to cut one. And before you can take it off though, we're going to have to get rid of this bar. And I don't think I've ever seen one of these plastic things in any kind of shape. They always have holes in them all and bent up and sheared up. But anyways, taking this bar off, you just label it. I know it doesn't look like it can go on wrong or backwards, but you know, it might get confusing later. So I'm just going to label this pin side down so I know, which way it belongs. So again, this chute, it still has a little life to it. So I don't know. I'm hoping that's just the bearings that are that played out. This thing must have been making noise. But from my experience, this blade should be way further towards the housing. I could be wrong on that, but it's very close to hitting here. But it's got a lot of junk under here, just built up grass and stuff, so it just doesn't look right to me. But again, the guy who takes it apart, he's got to be the guy that puts it back together. But if it's put together wrong by another person, then you get it and you put it back the same way, it might not be right, so I got to figure this out. I don't know if there's any diagram. Get some of this grass, hard grass out of here. See, there is something wrong with the bearings, but this is not supposed to have display. That's not supposed to be there, but the guy said it was noisy. So between that guy's got to be extremely noisy and this, that's actually, it might be some bearing noise, but it's the bottom piece of this blade on this hard pack, welded on grass over the years, right? Well, while it's flipped up this way, we'll see if we can get this bolt off easy enough. It's a 19. There's a keyway in there, but we can just pop that off, huh? There we go. Well, it may not come off the whole way until we lower it, but put it on. Just be mindful there's a keyway in here that you don't want to lose. This little, uh-oh, this one's broken. It's just half of a keyway left, but it was still working. I got more square keyway, so we'll deal with that when time comes. Let's put that on there, flip it around. Well, actually, this around here still, this side. Let's take these bolts off of here. The metal side. The plastic side, we had to cut some off. I think the metal side, because you can get the wrench on the head. Should be alright. Yeah, I think these are all coming loose. So once we get all these outer bolts off, this pulley can come off now, but again, this just a little rusty. I think this pulley's still good. This one doesn't have bearings, just the keyway. But again, that keyway, well, that's the problem. The keyway is a, yeah, it's a Woodruff. It's supposed to be a Woodruff key, and they had a square key in there, or just a little bit of a square key. So this thing's been definitely monkeyed with. A Woodruff key is the half moon key. You know, this is just a piece of square stock that was clipped. It looks like, and this bushing looks like it's. I think it'll make it. So before we take that other bearing off, you want to make sure this thing's straight and true. So just give it a turn and keep an eye on this. It's going to wobble a little bit because of the bearing, but if you got some kind of nasty play in there, you know, 'cause sometimes you can't see if this thing is actually bent by eye, but spinning it, you know, if it wants to go back and forth, this one looks pretty good. Well, somebody has way over tightened these, that's why they're bent. That's why there's lock nuts on them. It's just a cover, you know. So somebody torqued it right down and bent the thing. But the cover is just so you don't step on this bearing when it's going over 1,000 miles an hour, right? So now this thing's stuck on here, of course, to where it's supposed to be. Grass all over the place. So that looks like a 24. And here's the bearing. It's going to be, you know, as far as whether this was too high or upside down the bearings, you know, that sort of thing. Let me show you what I was looking at. So, the reason I said that is because these are normally, you can't get your fingers under here, right? That's probably where there's so much grass under there, but this might be the way it is, because if you look here, we can go down further, but it's kind of like right at the, you know, where this clamps together. I don't see any evidence of scraping on the top half of this, you know, clamshell. But perhaps, I'll try it both ways, the bearing one way and the bearing the other way. I'll clean all this hardened crap up. And, because I think it's supposed to go in a little further, but I could be wrong. Could be wrong, so let me take this apart and get everything cleaned up. So let me get this, take this thing off. So it is possible to, it is possible to put these bearings in upside down. Not so much on this side, because if you put it on this side, wrong, upside down rather, it'll bottom out. So this, this piece is where we just took off. This blade goes like this, right? It sits in there like this. That bearing, that's the old bearing. That actually doesn't sound bad at all. I think it was the grass and everything, but the guy gave me the bearings to put on, and we got it apart. We're going to do it, but that sounds pretty quiet, that bearing. But that walking back and forth, that clunking, perhaps that bearing's a little played out on the other side. What was it getting at? Oh yeah, so this one you can't really do upside down, because this side, the bolt gets pressed right to the inner collar of the bearing. That's how it gets tightened up. Plus it has a step, oh, where's the new one? A step out, right? So that's what the blade sits on. The blade sits on here to get it off from hitting the top of this plate, right? So. This carriage bolts should come out of there, no problem. I'm going to take these cups out and clean them all up. Clean them up the best we can. So we've got to separate these two. Yeah, switch you over to this side. So after you get them separated, this one looks like it's stuck in there. So just give this a little tap and a little bit of hammer. So again, I don't think this bearing is bad. So I'm not sure why that shaft was walking back and forth, because this bearing was pretty tight. We'll see what the other one looks like around the shaft. I can't see why it would walk back and forth that much. Not with the bearing we just took out. That was a pretty good bearing. Yeah, so it don't really matter which way the bearing goes in these cups, because it just gets sandwiched in there. But it does matter which way they go. So the lip goes out, right? Or into the tunnel. The flush part goes up. You want the carriage bolts on the other side where the blade is. You don't want the stud sticking down, obviously. Let's put our 24 back on. Wow, that washer's all concaved and shit. Damn. That might not even be the right washer. I'll be damned. So you don't want the washer pushing on the actual bearing. You want it pushing on the, like, you don't want a washer getting into this part. You want a washer that's just gonna, you know what I mean, for this part, because this and this is one piece. You can't sandwich that, but this is a bearing, you know. I'm gonna see if I can get a better washer than that. That doesn't look good at all. Yeah, I found some washers. That other one is too big. It's too, I don't even know what it went. It's swimming around too much, the original one. And it's bent, right? It's concaved, which means it's, you know, I guess it'll be alright, because it's not actually, if it was concave, it's coming off of that, but I'm just gonna, I doubled up these two washers. They actually are perfect for, they fall right on the race. They don't get into where the actual bearing is. So we're just gonna go with that. Yeah, I think it'll be alright. I do think this housing is bent. Yeah, you can see the housing is bent. Don't know what to do about that. Again, you get stuff. Yeah, it's totally bent. This piece is bent up. We're just going to put it back together. We're just doing what we're told. Changing the bearings. Alright, same thing with the other side of this. We'll go ahead and... Again, these bearings don't look bad to me. I never heard this thing when it was on the machine, so I'm just assuming that, wait, an extension, that the noise is between this and all that grass, that hardened grass that was on, you know, caked onto the bottom of that the bottom of that blade was hitting. So I could, because these are pretty quiet. Clean the cups up, right? Put the bearing in one side, right? Clamp it. Gets clamped together. And you want the carriage bolts on the inside. This is the outside of the, the inside is where the leaves are. You don't want something sticking up there. Alright, so here's an important piece of information. So these are snugged up just by, you know, finger tight, just so they engage into the square holes. We don't want to tighten these up yet because when we sandwich this back together, you see how this can move around inside the bearing cup. Because if you tighten it up and it's a little tweaked one way or the other, it could hit the other side. You see how this is going back and forth? So we need to get everything together, and then we can tighten everything up and make sure nothing is hitting. Like these blades could literally hit the other side if it's tweaked like this. You see what I'm saying? So we'll just leave it loose so we can adjust it. And where's the other side? So now we can put this thing back together. And actually, this bottom one, it doesn't necessarily have to be the bearing cup. I'll loosen it a little bit, but because this shaft, the bearing's not even hitting on this shaft, which is crazy, right? It's almost like they put the wrong bearing in, but I looked it up twice. It's the right bearing. When we put everything together and tightened everything up, I guess that's what they did. That's how they built it. That's how I'm going to put it back together. Well, before we get this situated, I think it belongs somewhere around here, but before we get that situated, we have to put this pulley back on. Remember, it wouldn't come off, so we have to raise it up a little bit to get it on, that kind of thing. Right, so got to do that first, but it's a woodruff key, and I have woodruff keys, but they're all the wrong same size or too long, so we're going to have to use another square. This is the correct width for this pulley, right? So it fits in, but obviously too long, and what I'm going to do is just make it like a woodruff key. We'll round off the edges so it'll fit in there nice. So let me make that and then get this on there, and then we'll put everything back together, align everything, and put everything back together. So this little fella should do the trick. It's just like a half, you know, we just rounded it off to make it look like a woodruff key. So this should fit in there. I gotta go take care of this door. Alright, so just using this, because this can only go on one way. Now we know where our holes are going to be. Now we can clamp everything down and align everything. So let me get some of these rusty bolts started. We're going to clamp down the metal first, not this side, the other side. I just want to get something started here. Alright, so we got all our outside metal on metal clamped down. Now we can, so I'm just going around with a ratchet, doing, you know, a couple quarter turns at a time just to make sure nothing moves. And I'll tighten that. Check it again here. I'll flip it around and show you what I'm checking, but it's pretty common sense. Just checking every spoke to make sure everything is kind of uniform. Oh, alright, so we do have a huge problem. Again, I got this thing. It's obviously the monkey with, but what I was trying to do is get everything uniform so nothing hits here, right? And I tightened up the top side, so we're good here. But then look, do you hear that? This whole thing is wobbling. I don't know if you can see in there. This bushing, not even close. So, and everything's tight. So I don't know what was there, but I do remember taking this apart thinking that's too much play. So something's goofy here, and we're going to have to figure it out. Now the shaft on this impeller goes right through the bearing, doesn't even touch, right? But it bottoms out, the top of this impeller bottoms out on this. So if you were to, and that's why you can see the bearing rotating, because the impeller's pushed on, you know, the race part, or the inner race here, and that's where the bearing's going. So if we get something to take up this, whether washers or whatever, find some kind of bushing where when we clamp this together, it clamps it to the bottom of this, right? And then it can't go nowhere, and then it will solve the clunkety-clunk deal. I don't know what's going on there. Again, it is not, you know, when when you get something used, you buy it used. I don't know, I think the fellow owns this bought it used. I don't even know if he knew if it ran, but clearly there was an issue with it. Just the way it was put together was wrong. But it doesn't, you know, it'll work like this, but we have to get that rectified. So I got to take this back. I kind of got to take everything back apart because this bar doesn't come off. It's welded on, and we can't get this pulley off without, you know, separating stuff. So let me work on it, and I'll show you the end result, or you know what I ended up doing. Because you can use it like this, but I wouldn't, just because it's just, you know, that's too much. That's too much play. Okay, so got her adjusted again. I tightened this bolt and the 3 bolts, and we're spinning without any noise. Now we're going to go back to the other side where our discrepancy was. And what I ended up doing was, so I had to loosen all these up again to get that damn pulley off. But everything's back on, and now we can kind of align it to this thing. So I got a washer in here. I don't know if you can see that. Big washer that's touching the top of the bearing, right? But it's also clearing, you know. So this was the spacer that had a lot of play. This is a washer here, and there's also, you probably can't see it, a little another washer, because this one may not have taken up all the play. So I put one up top too, not as big, but so I just want to kind of center this, and we'll torque that down. Okay, unfortunately, I think this thing is unfixable in terms of, you know, things are twisted, things are bent. That whole that ain't normal, so this bushing was worn out, so who knows, again, this is a used thing for sale, this piece only. There's a reason why it was for sale, right? I didn't buy it, but I don't know if the person that bought it actually checked it out on a mode before he bought it, but we got it to where it's going to work. So what I ended up doing, after going back and forth, tweaking, loosening things up, trying to get it to, you know, where it's not going to hit something, which we're at a spot now where it's not going to hit something. We still have to put the mechanism together, but you see I got this screwdriver over here. It's just got it tweaked out just a little bit, so we're going to have to, I just got the tip of the blade into, you know, separating these two. It's tight over here, but I'll put a washer or two in this end over here. It's the only way, because otherwise, it, you know, no matter which way I go, this is the best I can get it. This will work. It was working, well, I don't know if it was working before, but it doesn't clunk now, doesn't move up and down, right? This is solid, the way it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to have a clunk. That's ridiculous. These, I had to shim them out a little bit, right? You know, so there's a, whatever gap there. I mean, the grass will fill that up almost instantly. You know, it won't be an issue, or you could put some Gorilla Tape over the edge, you know, it's not that much. But there's a washer in between here and here. This is the only way I can get that thing not scraped. But it explains a lot why this other piece, where was it? This other piece was put on wrong. It's supposed to be sandwiched in between the plastic and whatever, and they were acting like a spacer for this. So this thing was tweaked to begin with, but it'll probably work now. I'm sure it'll work. It's kind of self-explanatory, but so the bar has to go on too, but we're going to put this plastic on first, and that kind of just flips over the flange on the top here. Like so. And then this piece over here, you know, you got your 3 bolts there. I guess we could do that over here. I'll spin it around and show you. I gotta get more bolts there, I'll break it. So we're basically just putting all the bolts back. You might want to leave them loosey-goosey until you get them all set. But, I have to get more bolts, but you just go around and attack all the bolts that you know, you took out. And see, this thing is plastic. You know, if you don't leave them loose, you might need to. This is the part I was talking about. This piece that goes, you know, gets clamped. This goes on top of the plastic. Spin this around for you. plastic is here, the metal's under here, and that's what this metal piece is for, right? It goes on as a, you know, clamping system, right? So let's rotate this, make sure the thing still rotates. Oh yeah, she's not hitting nothing. So anyways, we're just going to go around and bolt everything up and this thing is done. Pretty easy to do, but just a lot of bolts to take off. But there you have it. Again, I want to rotate this. No noise. That's what we're looking for, no noise whatsoever. Alright, so anyways, oh, this thing is so bulky. We got the top foot back on. We're all set. Anyways, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. I gotta get this out to the person that owns it. I'll see you next time. Okay, so this did end up working. It's been a couple of weeks since I did this repair, and now I'm editing. So I talked to the guy that owns this, and he said it's quiet, even though he didn't replace that one other noisy pulley. He said it's very quiet and it works great. So it was repairable, but obviously, you know, that bushing was worn out to a point where, yeah, I don't even know how the thing worked to begin with. He said it was just noisy before, but it worked. So that thing must have been sloshing around in there, just creating all kinds of noise and stuff. So my opinion, I think it got hit, tweaked, and perhaps somebody went in there to try to fix it and did the best they could with it. But ultimately, that's probably why it was sold, used as is, right? So anyways, that's all I got. Thanks for watching.